Please welcome Lana and Franklin Pargh from Nashville, Tennessee.
Good afternoon. I want to start this speech off by saying, Laura and Brent, thank you so much for your stories. We were both very touched and moved, and we don't know you very well, but we were talking. We both love you so much, so thank you. Hi, I'm Franklin Pargh. My wife, Lana, and I are proud third-year cabinet members. Lana and I met for the first time at a bar mitzvah in Nashville, Tennessee, when we were just 12 years old. I saw her and thought, that is the most... That's going to be you. That is the most beautiful girl I have ever seen. We danced and flirted that night, but our paths went in different directions, and unfortunately, we didn't speak again until many years later after college. It was actually at a mutual friend's house where we were reconnected. The short version is we fell in love, got married, had 2 boys, started a real estate business, and she's been tolerating me ever since. Very true. We were both born in 1984, but we had very different childhood experiences. I lived a comfortable life. My father was a successful businessman who worked tirelessly and was very involved in the Jewish community. My parents always made time to celebrate Shabbat together. We regularly sat at the table on Friday nights, lighting candles, drinking grape juice and wine, and singing Hebrew prayers. We were never in fear of hiding our religion or our culture. I am a proud 5th-generation Jewish Nashville native, and in my experience, Jews are very well liked in the South. And I'll tell you, these Southerners, we love Israel. Particularly among the religious Christians, and growing up, Jewish in Nashville was awesome. Yes, I was a minority, it's very obvious, but I always felt welcome and celebrated for being Jewish. My parents and grandparents didn't take anything for granted, and they taught me the importance of working hard, volunteering and philanthropy, and leading by example. After serving as a highly decorated fighter pilot in World War II, at the ripe age of 22 years old, my grandfather, Eugene Parr, came home to Nashville with nothing to his name. Returning after the war was difficult, as you can imagine. And thankfully, my grandfather had a small group of Jewish friends through the JCC and Federation, and ultimately had opportunities to grow professionally and financially. His best friend and future longtime business partner, Sidney Averbush, said, and this is a famous quote in our family, "Hey, Eugene, why don't you come help me build some houses?" And so he did. Later on in life, he never forgot what the JCC, and that the JCC allowed him to pay just $1.25 a month to be a member, and that the Federation was still grateful when he gave just 50 cents for his annual donation. As time passed, he and my grandmother were able to give much more.
I'm Lana, Franklin's better half. I was born in Minsk, Belarus, where I lived with my dad, a chemical engineer, my mom, a restaurant general manager, and my older sister. Because my mom was in the restaurant business, we were lucky to have access to all kinds of food. When there was a shortage in bananas, I actually had them at home. I brought a banana to school, and I split it into 14 pieces and gave each of my friends a taste of a real banana. My parents built a great life for us and paid off who they had to keep us safe. As you heard in the movie that played earlier, anti-Semitism was rampant. My parents feared for our future. I remember my mom lighting Shabbat candles and Hanukkah menorahs in a closet so nobody could see we were Jewish. Okay. My family decided to leave when my sister was not accepted to grad school, even after she aced her entrance exam because she was Jewish. Sorry. The conditions were getting worse, and my parents became desperate to come to the US, where we'd have freedom and opportunities. It's not easy to leave communism. Before I was born, my family tried to leave, My dad submitted the application to the governmental agency in charge, the Russian KGB. So now, the KGB had all of our information. They knew that we were Jewish, what we did, how much money we had. They knew where we lived, and they knew that we wanted to leave. Our first attempt in 1979 was not successful because my grandmother was sick, and my mom just couldn't leave her. Because we had planned to leave but didn't, both my parents were demoted at work. Thankfully, 10 years later, President Gorbachev, whom my parents still love to this day, invited us to leave his country. My dad quickly packed our bags, sold whatever he could, and left almost everything we owned. We were unaware that the Jewish Federation and the Jewish community in the United States had been fighting every day to make it possible for us to leave. The day that we left, the building elevator was broken. My parents threw suitcases out of their window from the 13th floor so we wouldn't miss our train. My dad, mom, and sister carried 20 bags full of clothing, tchotchkes, linens, and a Persian rug, which my dad carried on his back to sell during the journey. My dad is 5 foot barely. My mom sewed pockets into her and my sister's bras to hide jewelry as well. We left with $360. My parents didn't bring any photo albums with us because they were too heavy and it wasn't worth the wait. There were dozens of other Jewish Russian families on that train with us, everyone overcome with emotions. When I was 5, we arrived in Nashville. I didn't speak English and I barely spoke Russian. I was in a state of shock and I didn't say words for weeks. When we stepped off the plane, the Federation volunteers greeted us and brought us into a furnished apartment across from the JCC with a fully stocked refrigerator. As nice and generous as they were, I was scared. It was an unfamiliar place. I did not know what was going on. My mom took my hand and she said, "You know what?" in her beautiful accent. "You know what? You can smell this fresh air. Our house has food and furniture in it, and you can be whatever you want to be in America." I'll never forget her smile and her happy tears. Federation and Jewish Family Services helped my parents get jobs and rides to work. My dad started as a janitor and a Kroger bag boy. They helped my mom get into community college and study accounting. My sister went straight to college and even found a Jewish family to sponsor her English classes. The Federation paid for me to go to Akiva School, which is our local Jewish day school. I ultimately received scholarships to 2 other private schools and attended the University of Tennessee, where I earned my degree in architecture. None of this would have been possible without the Federation.
It's important to note that the Federation didn't just help Lana's family and the 24 individuals who came to Nashville back in 1989. The Federation brought 85,000 Jews from Belarus to the U.S. that year. That's awesome.
Thank you.
My grandparents, Eugene and Madeline Pargh, meant the world to me. So much so that I wanted to propose to Lana in Florida so that my grandparents would be the first to celebrate with us. Thankfully, she said yes. And during our celebration, my grandparents shared three very surprising things with us. First, they told us that they were among a handful of families who bought the plane tickets for the former USSR immigrants arriving to the US in 1989. They even went so far as to confirm that Lana's family was one of those families. Basically, my grandparents paid for my future wife's family. God, okay. Okay. Basically, my grandparents paid for my future wife's family to come to the U.S. for a better life and opportunity. Obviously, they had no idea that their generosity would greatly benefit their grandson. But But they believed in giving back, and look what it got us. I found the love of my life. The second thing that we learned was that my grandmother actually helped furnish the apartment that Lana's family lived in when they first arrived in Nashville. And the third thing that we learned was that Lana's private high school, which she mentioned earlier that she got a scholarship from, that was actually paid for by my grandparents as well. At the time, my grandparents didn't know her at all, but they received a call about a young, bright Jewish Russian girl who needed a scholarship, and they were more than happy to help. As you can imagine, during that conversation with my grandparents, who are not with us today, we were in a state of shock hearing all of these things, and it was an incredibly emotional and amazing experience, and we love our story. We really do. But what you've heard is the short version of our serendipitous love story, and we have the Federation and the generosity of the families who gave to thank for it. What we want you to take away from our story is that your generosity makes a difference in the lives of so many people. You will likely never know the full extent of positive outcomes resulting from your kindness.
I would not be here today if it weren't for the Jewish Federation. We are all better because of what the Federation does and what the Federation provides to Jewish communities across the U.S. and all over the world. In fact, today in the former Soviet Union, Federation is still making an impact. My family's journey required a lot of resilience, a lot of hard work, a lot of luck, and a lot of faith. Federation was the catalyst for our future in Nashville, Tennessee. And it was up to us and up to me to make sure that their effort was worth it. Growing up, I always felt like I had to work harder, do better, and be better. After all, my family left everything: careers, financial security, friends, and even family, for me and my sister to have a better life and a better future. I always felt like I had to do my part. And now that I'm in the position to give more generously, I am able to make my parents proud, Franklin's parents proud, teach my children the importance of philanthropy, and make a significant difference in my community. And it feels really good. Later this month, for Hanukkah, we will light our menorahs openly and proudly with our kids and parents. And I feel a tremendous amount of gratitude for all the people who helped get us to where we are today.
Thanks to the Federation's work all of those years ago, Lana's family, which is now a very important part of my family, does not have to hide anymore. I'd love to be able to tell Lana that she will never, ever, ever have to hide again. It is imperative that everyone in this room and our communities back home continue to work together to ensure that none of us ever have to conceal the beauty and the strength of our Jewish faith and shared culture. Lana and I are committed more than ever to donating to the Federation, and we invite you to join us. Thank you so much.